It started with a moment so small, so ordinary, that no one could have guessed it would change everything. A quiet evening, a dusty roadside cafe, and three people whose lives were about to collide in a way none of them were ready for. If you've ever trusted someone with your whole heart, if you've ever believed love was enough, then this story might make you question everything. Her name was Alina. She wasn't rich, she wasn't famous, but she had something far more rare: loyalty. The kind of loyalty that made her stand by someone even when things got tough. For 3 years she had been in a relationship with Ryan. He wasn't perfect, not even close, but to her he was home. They had built dreams together. Small ones like saving up for a better apartment, and big ones like starting a life far away from all their struggles. But life hadn't been easy on them. Ryan had been out of work for months. Bills were piling up, arguments were becoming more frequent, and the pressure was slowly eating away at what they once had. Still, Alina stayed. She believed in him even when everyone else told her to walk away. That evening, Ryan had called her to meet him at the cafe on the edge of town. His voice sounded different, excited, almost nervous. He said he had good news, something that would change everything for them. Alina felt a spark of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. Maybe things were finally turning around. When she arrived, she noticed Ryan wasn't alone. Sitting across from him was his old friend, Samir. Now Samir was someone she never fully trusted. He had that kind of charm that felt a little too smooth, a little too rehearsed. He smiled easily, but his eyes never quite matched it. Alina greeted them both and sat down, trying to ignore the strange tension in the air. Ryan barely looked at her. His hands were restless, tapping against the table, his eyes darting toward the bag sitting beside Samir's chair. It was an ordinary bag. Old, worn out, nothing special about it. But something about the way both of them kept glancing at it made her uneasy. "What's going on?" she asked, forcing a smile. Ryan hesitated. Samir leaned back, crossing his arms, watching her like he already knew something she didn't. Seconds passed, but no one spoke. The silence grew heavy, almost uncomfortable. Then, without a word, Samir nudged the bag slightly forward with his foot. And that's when it happened. The zipper wasn't fully closed. Just a small gap, but enough. Enough for Alina to see what was inside. Bundles. Thick stacks. Neatly packed. Money. A bag full of dollars. Her heart skipped a beat. For a second she thought she was imagining it. This couldn't be real. Not here, not with them. Ryan, who couldn't even pay rent last week, sitting next to a bag filled with more money than she had ever seen in her life. She slowly looked up at him, her eyes searching for an explanation. "Ryan, what is this?" But he didn't answer. That silence, it said more than any words could. Samir let out a quiet laugh, shaking his head as if he had been waiting for this moment all along. "Looks like she wasn't supposed to see that," he said casually. Alina felt a cold wave run through her. Her mind started racing. Where did this money come from? Why was Ryan hiding it? And more importantly, what had he gotten himself into? "Tell me the truth," she said, her voice now firm, almost demanding. Ryan finally looked at her, but his eyes were filled with something she had never seen before: fear. Not fear of her. Fear of something much bigger. "It's not what you think," he said quickly. But that only made it worse. Because if it wasn't what she thought, then what was it? Her chest tightened. Every instinct inside her was screaming that something was wrong. This wasn't just about money. This felt dangerous. The kind of situation people don't walk away from easily. Samir leaned forward, his tone turning serious. "Sometimes in life, Alina, opportunities come in ways you don't expect. The smart ones don't ask too many questions." That was it. That was the moment something inside her broke. This wasn't the man she had been defending for 3 years. This wasn't the life she had imagined. And whatever this was, she didn't want to be a part of it. Without another word, she stood up. Ryan reached out, trying to stop her. "Alina, wait, please just listen." But she pulled her hand away. "No," she said softly, but with a strength that surprised even herself. "I don't know what this is, but I know it's not right." And just like that she walked away. Away from the cafe. Away from Ryan. Away from everything they had built together. But as she stepped out into the dark street, her heart pounding and her mind spinning, one thought kept echoing louder than the rest. What if walking away wasn't the end of it? Because behind her, inside that cafe, the story was far from over. The night air felt colder than usual as Alina walked faster, almost as if she was trying to escape something chasing her. Her hands were slightly shaking, and she kept replaying the same moment in her mind: the bag, the money, Ryan's face, and the way Samir had looked at her like she didn't belong there. She didn't stop until she reached the main road where the streetlights were brighter and a few people were still passing by. Only then did she slow down, taking a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside her chest. Nothing made sense. Just hours ago, she thought she was going to hear good news, maybe even something that would fix everything between her and Ryan. Instead, she walked into something that felt wrong. Her phone buzzed. She didn't need to look to know who it was. Ryan. She stared at the screen as it kept ringing. For a second, she thought about answering. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe she had misunderstood everything. But then she remembered his silence. The way he couldn't even look her in the eyes. The call stopped. A message came in almost immediately. Please just talk to me. It's not what it looks like. Alina let out a quiet, bitter breath. That sentence, it never meant anything good. She had heard it before, from other people in other situations. It always meant there was more to the story. And not the kind you want to hear. She slipped her phone back into her bag and started walking again, but slower this time. Her thoughts began drifting back not just to tonight but to the past few months. Things had started changing long before this evening. Ryan had become distant. At first she thought it was just stress. Losing his job had hit him hard. He stopped laughing as much, stopped sharing little things about his day. Then came the late nights. He would leave without saying much and return even later, often avoiding her questions with short, tired answers. I'm just trying to fix things, he would say. And she believed him. Because that's what love does. It makes you ignore the signs you don't want to see. But now, those signs were coming back clearer than ever. Samir. He had come back into Ryan's life around the same time everything started changing. Before that, Alina had only heard stories about him. They used to be close years ago, but something happened and they stopped talking. Ryan never went into details, only saying, we had different paths. When Samir showed up again, it felt sudden. Too sudden. He started visiting often. Sometimes he would take Ryan out and they wouldn't return until late. Whenever Alina asked what they were doing, Ryan would brush it off. Just catching up, he'd say. But it never felt that simple. Samir always carried himself with confidence, like someone who knew exactly what he was doing. He dressed well, spoke carefully, and always seemed to be watching people more than talking to them. Alina noticed those things even if she never said them out loud. And tonight, that bag confirmed her worst fears. Alina reached a small park and sat down on an empty bench. The world around her felt quiet, but her mind was louder than ever. She tried to connect the dots, but every thought led to more questions. Where did the money come from? Why was Ryan involved? And why did it feel like Samir was the one in control? Her phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a call. Another message. You're not safe walking alone. Tell me where you are. She froze. Not safe? Her eyes scanned the area around her. A couple of people were walking in the distance, nothing unusual. But suddenly everything felt different. The quiet wasn't peaceful anymore. It felt heavy, like something unseen was pressing down on her. Was he worried about her, or was he warning her? Before she could think too much, another message appeared. Please don't make this harder than it already is. Her heart started beating faster. Harder? What did that even mean? Alina stood up quickly, her instincts telling her not to stay in one place for too long. She started walking again, this time heading toward her apartment. Every step felt heavier, like she was carrying something invisible with her. As she turned into a quieter street, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She glanced over her shoulder, but there was no one there. Still, the uneasiness stayed. Meanwhile, back at the cafe, the situation hadn't settled either. Ryan was pacing back and forth, running his hands through his hair. I told you she shouldn't have been here, he said, his voice filled with frustration. Samir remained seated, calm as ever. Relax, he replied. She saw money, not a crime. That's not the point, Ryan snapped. She's not stupid. She's going to start asking questions. Samir finally looked up, his expression sharpening slightly. And what if she does? Ryan stopped pacing. That question hung in the air, heavier than anything else. Because deep down, he didn't have an answer. Samir leaned forward, lowering his voice. You need to decide something, Ryan. Are you in this, or not? Silence filled the space again. Outside, the night moved on like nothing had changed. Cars passed, people laughed, lights flickered in distant buildings. But for Alina, for Ryan, and for whatever they had just stepped into, nothing would be the same again. And as Alina finally reached her building, her hand trembling slightly as she reached for her keys, she couldn't shake one terrifying thought. What if walking away from that cafe didn't actually mean she was free from it? Alina locked the door behind her and leaned against it, as if that thin piece of wood could protect her from everything outside. Her apartment felt smaller than usual, almost unfamiliar. The same walls, the same furniture, but something had shifted. She walked slowly to the window and peeked through the curtain, checking the street below. Nothing looked out of place. Still, she didn't feel safe. She placed her bag on the table and sat down, staring at her phone again. Ryan hadn't sent another message. That silence somehow felt worse than his words. It left space for her imagination to run wild, filling in the blanks with things she wasn't ready to face. She tried to distract herself, but her thoughts kept circling back. That bag full of dollars wasn't just about money. It was about secrets. It was about choices. And somewhere in the middle of all that was Ryan. A part of her wanted to believe him. 3 years is not something you throw away easily. She remembered the version of him who used to make her laugh over nothing, who stayed up late just to talk about their future, who promised her that no matter what happened, they would always stay honest with each other. But tonight he wasn't that person. Tonight he looked like someone hiding something big. Her phone buzzed again, making her flinch. This time it wasn't Ryan. It was an unknown number. For a moment she hesitated. Then she opened the message. Sometimes the truth is not as simple as it looks. Be careful who you trust. Her breath caught in her throat. No name. No explanation. Just that one line. A chill ran down her spine. Was this connected to Ryan? To Samir? Or was it just a coincidence? It didn't feel like one. She typed a reply, her fingers slightly unsteady. Who is this? The message showed as delivered, but no response came. Alina placed the phone down slowly, her mind racing even faster now. Whatever was going on, it was bigger than she thought. And somehow she had already become part of it. Across town, Ryan sat alone in his car, parked in a dimly lit corner of an empty street. The engine was off, but he hadn't moved for several minutes. His hands rested on the steering wheel, his eyes unfocused, lost in thought. He kept replaying the moment Alina walked away. The look in her eyes. Disappointment. That hurt more than anything. He pulled out his phone and opened their chat again. Her last message from earlier that day was still there, simple and full of hope. Don't be late. I feel like something good is going to happen today. He closed his eyes tightly. Yeah, something did happen, he muttered under his breath. But not the way she expected. A sudden knock on his car window made him jump. Samir. Ryan unlocked the door, and Samir slipped into the passenger seat like he owned the place. He didn't say anything at first, just looked ahead calmly. You need to stop reacting emotionally, Samir finally said. Ryan let out a frustrated laugh. Emotionally? She just saw something I can't explain. Samir turned his head slightly. Then don't explain it. It's not that simple, Ryan replied quickly. She's not just anyone. Samir studied him for a moment, then leaned back. That's exactly the problem. Those words hit harder than Ryan expected. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then Samir continued, his voice steady but firm. You're standing between two paths right now. One leads back to your old life, struggling, waiting, hoping things magically get better. The other, he paused, glancing at Ryan, the other gives you everything you said you wanted. Ryan shook his head. At what cost? Samir didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, every opportunity has a price. The difference is whether you're willing to pay it. Back in her apartment, Alina couldn't sit still anymore. She got up and started pacing. Her instincts were telling her to do something, not just wait around. She needed answers. Her eyes landed on something she hadn't noticed earlier. Ryan's jacket. He had left it at her place a few days ago. She walked over to it slowly. For a moment she hesitated. Going through someone's belongings didn't feel right. But then again, neither did everything that had happened tonight. She reached into the pocket. At first nothing unusual. Then her fingers touched something folded. A piece of paper. She pulled it out carefully and opened it. It wasn't a letter. It was a receipt. But not from any normal place. The name printed at the top meant nothing to her, but the numbers below, they stood out. Large amounts. Dates from the past few weeks. And at the bottom, a short handwritten note. Final drop, don't be late. Her heart started pounding again. Drop? She whispered to herself. What kind of drop? This wasn't just about money anymore. This sounded like something planned. Something ongoing. And Ryan was in the middle of it. Her phone buzzed once more, almost as if the night refused to let her breathe. Another message from the unknown number. Now you see why walking away won't be that easy. Alina's hands went cold. Whoever this was, they knew. They knew what she had just found. They knew she hadn't let go of this yet. And suddenly the question wasn't just about Ryan or Samir anymore. It was about how deep this situation really went, and whether she was already too far inside it to turn back. Alina stood frozen in the middle of her apartment, the receipt still trembling in her hands. The words on that paper felt heavier now, like they carried more than just ink. Final drop, don't be late. It wasn't just a message. It was a warning. Or maybe a deadline. Her eyes slowly moved back to her phone. That unknown number, it knew too much. It knew what she saw at the cafe, it knew she had found something else, and worst of all, it felt like it was watching her every move. She quickly walked back to the window and pulled the curtain aside just a little more this time. The street looked quiet, almost too quiet. A car was parked across the road with its lights off. She didn't remember seeing it earlier. Her heartbeat started rising again. Was she overthinking, or was something actually wrong? She stepped back, closing the curtain completely now. Her mind was racing, trying to decide what to do next. Call Ryan? Ignore everything? Or dig deeper? Her eyes fell back on the receipt. Final drop. That meant something was about to happen, soon. And if that was true, then whatever Ryan and Samir were involved in wasn't over yet. It was still moving forward. Before she could think twice, she grabbed her phone and dialed Ryan. This time he picked up almost instantly. Alina, his voice came through, tense and alert. I found something. She cut him off, her tone sharp but controlled. A receipt. It says, final drop. What is going on, Ryan? There was silence on the other end. Not confusion. Not surprise. Just silence. You shouldn't be looking through my things, he finally said, but his voice lacked any real anger. It sounded more like worry. That's what you're concerned about right now? She replied, disbelief clear in her voice. Stop avoiding the question. What does it mean? Another pause. Then he spoke again, lower this time. Where are you? Alina's grip tightened on the phone. At home. Stay there, he said quickly. Don't go anywhere. I'll come to you and explain everything. Something about the way he said it made her uneasy. Why does it feel like you're not telling me everything again? She asked. Because I can't explain this over the phone, he replied. Just trust me one last time. Trust. That word again. Felt different now. Heavier. Before she could respond, the call ended. Alina stared at the screen, her reflection faintly visible. One last time, she whispered. But deep down she wasn't sure if she had that kind of trust left. Across town, Ryan started his car and drove off quickly. His mind was no longer divided. Things had gone too far now. Alina wasn't just on the outside anymore. She had seen enough to become part of the situation, whether he liked it or not. And that made everything more dangerous. He reached for his phone and dialed Samir. What now? Samir answered, sounding almost amused. She knows more than she should, Ryan said firmly. I'm going to her place. There was a brief pause before Samir spoke again. That's a risk. So is doing nothing, Ryan replied. Samir let out a quiet breath. You're letting emotions take control again. No, Ryan said, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. I'm trying to fix what I can before it's too late. Samir didn't argue this time. Instead, he said something that made Ryan's grip on the steering wheel tighten. Just remember, tonight is not optional. The call ended. Those words echoed in Ryan's mind. Tonight is not optional. Back in her apartment, Alina couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. Every second felt important now. She looked around her space, trying to think clearly, but her thoughts kept jumping between fear and curiosity. Then suddenly, a soft knock at the door. She froze. Ryan couldn't have reached this fast. The knock came again. Slightly louder this time. Her heart started pounding in her ears. Who is it? She called out, trying to keep her voice steady. No answer. Just silence. Another knock. Slower. More deliberate. Alina took a cautious step toward the door. Every instinct was telling her not to open it, but another part of her needed to know. She looked through the peephole. For a second she saw nothing. Then, movement. Someone stepped into view, but only partially. She couldn't see the face clearly, just the shadow and the edge of a shoulder. Her breath caught. Alina, a voice said softly from outside. It wasn't Ryan. Her chest tightened instantly. She stepped back from the door, her mind racing again. Whoever this was, they knew her name. Her phone buzzed at that exact moment, almost making her jump. Another message from the unknown number. Don't open the door. Her eyes widened. A cold wave rushed through her body. If the person outside wasn't Ryan, and the one texting her knew about it, then how close was this situation really getting? The knock came again, louder this time. "Alina, I know you're inside," the voice said, still calm, but firmer now. Her hand slowly moved toward the door handle, then stopped. Everything inside her was screaming that this moment mattered. One decision, and everything could change. And just as she stood there, caught between fear and curiosity, her phone buzzed one more time. This time it wasn't a message. It was a photo. Her hands shook as she opened it. It was taken from outside. Her building. Her door. And the person standing right in front of it. Alina's heart nearly stopped, because now she realized something terrifying. Whoever was watching her was already closer than she ever imagined. Alina's hands went numb as she stared at the photo on her phone. It was real. Too real. The angle, the lighting, even the small crack near her doorframe, it all matched perfectly. Whoever sent it wasn't guessing. They were there. Right outside. Her breathing became shallow. She looked from the phone to the door, then back again, trying to understand what was happening. The person standing outside shifted slightly, and their shadow moved under the gap at the bottom of the door. "Alina," the voice came again, a little more urgent this time. "Open the door. We need to talk." Her instinct screamed no. But her curiosity, and fear, kept her frozen in place. Another message appeared. "Don't trust the voice. You're being pulled into something bigger." Her heart pounded harder. Bigger? How much bigger could this get? She quickly typed back, "Who are you? What do you want?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No reply. The silence felt intentional, like whoever it was wanted her to sit in the fear a little longer. Outside, the knocking stopped. For a moment, everything went quiet. Too quiet. Alina slowly stepped closer to the door again, careful not to make any noise. She leaned in, listening. Nothing. Not even footsteps. Did they leave? She looked through the peephole again. Empty hallway. Her shoulders dropped slightly, but the tension didn't leave her body. Something wasn't right. It felt like a pause, not an end. Suddenly her phone rang. "Ryan." She answered instantly this time. "Ryan, someone was just at my door," she said quickly, her voice shaking. "They knew my name. And I just got a picture from someone showing." "I know," he interrupted. That one word stopped her cold. "You know?" she repeated slowly. There was a heavy pause on the line. Then he said something that made everything feel even more confusing. "You're not supposed to be alone right now." Alina stepped back, her grip tightening around the phone. "What does that mean?" "Ryan, stop talking in circles and just tell me what's going on." "I'm almost there," he said. "Just stay inside. Lock everything. Don't open the door for anyone except me." "Except you?" she echoed. "How do I even know what to believe anymore?" He didn't answer that. Instead, his voice lowered. "Because right now, I might be the only one who's actually trying to keep you safe." The call ended before she could respond. Alina stood there, stunned. The only one keeping her safe? Then who was the person outside? And who was sending her those messages? Her thoughts were interrupted by a faint sound. A soft click. She turned her head toward the door. Her eyes widened. The handle moved. Just slightly. Alina's heart jumped into her throat. She hadn't unlocked it. She was sure of it. Another slow movement. Someone was trying the door from the outside. She stepped back quickly, her breathing uneven now. "No, no," she whispered under her breath. Then it stopped. Complete silence again. Seconds passed. Then her phone buzzed once more. Another message. "Check the back window." Her body hesitated, but her mind pushed her forward. Slowly, carefully, she walked toward the back of the apartment. Every step felt heavy, like she was walking into something she couldn't take back. She reached the window and pulled the curtain aside just a little. At first she saw nothing. Then, a figure. Standing across the narrow alley behind her building. Watching. Not moving. Just watching. Alina stepped back immediately, her pulse racing out of control now. This wasn't random. This wasn't coincidence. She was surrounded. Watched from the front and the back. Her phone slipped slightly in her hand as another message came through. "They're making their move earlier than expected." Her mind struggled to keep up. "They?" she whispered. Who were they? Before she could think further, her phone rang again. But this time, it wasn't Ryan. It was the same unknown number. For a moment she hesitated. Then she answered. A voice spoke, calm but serious. "You don't have much time, Alina?" Her breath caught. "Who is this?" "I'm someone who tried to stay out of this," the voice replied. "But you've already been pulled in." "Pulled into what?" she asked, her voice barely steady. There was a brief pause. Then the voice said something that changed everything. That money you saw, it's not just money. And Ryan didn't just find it. He chose it. Alina felt like the ground shifted under her feet. Chose it? No, you're lying, she said quickly, almost instinctively. You don't know him. I know enough, the voice replied. And you need to understand something right now. Ryan is not stuck in this situation, he's part of it. The line went quiet for a second, then the voice added one more thing. And tonight is the point where there's no turning back. The call ended. Alina stood there, completely still, her mind spinning in every direction. Ryan, part of it? Not forced, not trapped, but involved by choice? Her chest tightened as doubt and fear collided inside her. Then, a knock again. But this time different. Faster. Urgent. Alina. It's me. Ryan's voice came from the other side of the door. She froze. Her eyes moved slowly toward the entrance. Was it really him? Or just another trap? And as she stood there, caught between everything she had just heard and everything she once believed, one question echoed louder than anything else. If Ryan was truly part of this, then why was he trying so hard to reach her now? Alina stood in the middle of her apartment, her heart racing so fast it almost hurt. Ryan's voice was still coming from behind the door, urgent and desperate. Alina, please. Open the door. We don't have time. Her mind felt split in two. One side held on to the memories, the love, the trust, the life they had built together. The other side was filled with everything she had just discovered. The bag full of dollars, the strange messages, the unknown voice, and the feeling that she had been pulled into something dangerous. Say something only I would know, she called out, her voice trembling but firm. There was a short pause, then Ryan replied instantly, the first place we ever met, you dropped your coffee and blamed me for it. Her breath caught. That was real. Too real to fake. She slowly walked toward the door, her hand shaking as she reached for the lock. For a second she hesitated, then she unlocked it and pulled the door open. Ryan stepped inside quickly and shut the door behind him. He looked different. Tired. Stressed. His eyes scanned the room like he was checking for something. Are you okay? He asked, moving closer to her. Alina didn't answer. She just stared at him, searching his face for truth. Start talking, she said quietly. No more lies. Ryan took a deep breath, running his hand through his hair. For a moment, it looked like he didn't know where to begin. That money, it's part of something bigger, he finally said. It's a network. Not illegal in the way you're thinking, but not clean either. Alina frowned. That doesn't explain anything. I got pulled into it when I was desperate, he continued. Samir introduced me. At first it felt like a way out. Fast money, no questions. I told myself it was temporary. But it wasn't, she said. He shook his head slowly. No, it never is. Her chest tightened. So the voice on the phone, they said you chose this. Ryan looked at her, his expression complicated. I did, at the start. But not anymore. Before she could respond, there was a sudden noise outside. Footsteps. More than one. Ryan's face changed instantly. They're here. Who? Alina asked, panic rising again. The people behind the money, he said quickly. Samir works with them, but he's not the one in charge. As if on cue, a knock hit the door again, louder this time. Ryan, a voice called from outside. Come. Controlled. We know you're in there. Alina felt her stomach drop. Ryan grabbed her hand gently but firmly. Listen to me. Whatever happens, don't say anything. Let me handle this. Her instinct was to pull away to question him again, but something in his eyes stopped her. For the first time that night she saw clarity. Not fear. Not confusion. A decision. The knock came again, sharper now. Ryan walked toward the door and opened it. Samir stood there, but he wasn't alone. Two other men stood behind him, quiet and watchful. Samir's gaze shifted from Ryan to Alina and back again. This got messy, he said calmly. Ryan stepped slightly forward, blocking their view of Alina. She's not involved. Samir tilted his head, studying him. She saw the bag. That makes her involved. Alina's heart pounded as she listened. Ryan didn't move. Then let her walk away. Samir let out a small breath, almost like a quiet laugh. You're still thinking like this is your decision. The tension in the room grew heavier with every second. Then, unexpectedly, Alina spoke. No, she said. Everyone turned to look at her. Her voice was steady now, even though her hands were still slightly shaking. I'm already involved. Running won't fix that. Ryan looked at her, surprised. Alina. But she continued, her eyes now fixed on Samir. What do you want? Samir watched her for a moment, then gave a faint smile. Simple. We finish what we started tonight. After that, everyone goes their separate ways. And if we don't? She asked. The smile didn't fade. That wouldn't be good for anyone. Silence filled the room again. Then Ryan spoke, his voice firm. Fine. We'll finish it. Alina turned to him, confused. What are you doing? He looked at her, and for the first time since all of this began, there was honesty in his voice. Ending it. The next few moments moved quickly. Too quickly for Alina to fully process. They were led outside toward the same dark streets that had felt empty just hours ago. But now, everything felt different. Every shadow, every corner carried tension. They reached a quiet spot near the edge of town. Samir opened the bag again, the stacks of dollars still neatly packed inside. This is where it closes, he said. Ryan stepped forward slowly. Alina watched him, her heart caught somewhere between fear and hope. She didn't fully understand what was about to happen, but she knew this was the moment everything would change. Then suddenly, Ryan pushed the bag back toward Samir. I'm out, he said. The words hit the air like a shockwave. Samir's expression didn't change immediately, but something in his eyes shifted. You don't walk out of this. I just did, Ryan replied. For a second it felt like everything might explode. But then, Samir laughed. Not angry, not surprised, almost impressed. Too late, he said quietly. Alina frowned, confusion rising again. Too late for what? She asked. Samir looked at her this time, his expression unreadable. For him to pretend he didn't know. Ryan went still. Alina turned toward him slowly. Didn't know what? Samir's voice stayed calm. The money tonight wasn't the final drop. Silence. Then he added, it was a test. Alina felt her breath catch. A test? She whispered. Samir nodded slightly. To see who could be trusted, and who couldn't. Her eyes moved back to Ryan. And in that moment, everything clicked. The urgency. The fear. The way he rushed to her. The way he tried to pull away at the last second. It wasn't just about protecting her. It was about choosing a side. Samir took a step back. And now we have our answer. The air felt heavier than ever. Ryan stood there, caught between two worlds. Alina stood beside him, no longer just a bystander. And as the night stretched on, one truth became impossible to ignore. Some choices don't just change your life. They decide who you really are. The silence after Samir's words felt heavier than anything that had come before. The air was still, but inside Alina, everything was moving, thoughts, memories, emotions all colliding at once. A test. That's what this had been. Not just about money. Not just about risk. But about trust, loyalty, and choice. Alina slowly turned her head toward Ryan. She wasn't looking at the man she used to know anymore. She was looking at someone standing at a line he couldn't step back from. You knew? She asked softly. Ryan didn't answer right away. His eyes dropped for a moment, then came back to her. That silence told her enough before he even spoke. I didn't know everything, he said finally, his voice low. But I knew enough to understand what this could turn into. Her chest tightened. And you still went along with it? I thought I could control it, he admitted. I thought I could take what we needed and walk away before it got this far. Alina let out a slow breath, shaking her head slightly. It always gets this far, Ryan. That's how these things work. Samir watched them quietly, almost like an observer now instead of someone involved. The tension had shifted. It wasn't just about the situation anymore, it was about what came next. You made your choice, Samir said calmly. Now you live with it. Ryan didn't look at him. Yeah, he replied. I will. Another quiet moment passed, but this time it felt different. Less like pressure, more like the end of something that had been building for a long time. Samir gave a small nod to the others behind him, then stepped back. We're done here. That surprised Alina. She expected more resistance, more conflict. But instead, they turned and walked away, taking the bag with them like none of this had ever happened. Just like that, it was over. Or at least, that part of it was. The road fell silent again. Only the faint sound of distant traffic filled the space. Alina stood there, trying to process everything. It didn't feel real. Hours ago, she was sitting in a cafe thinking about a normal life. Now she was here, watching the last pieces of something dangerous disappear into the night. She turned back to Ryan. For the first time, there was nothing between them. No secrets left hidden. No confusion about what had happened. Just truth. What happens now? She asked. Ryan looked at her, and for a moment, he seemed like the same person she had known before all of this. But only for a moment. Now, I deal with what I chose, he said. And me? She asked quietly. That question hit harder than anything else. Ryan took a step closer but not too close. You go back to your life, he said. The one you were building before all this. The one I almost messed up for you. Alina's eyes didn't leave his. Almost? He gave a faint, tired smile. Okay, more than almost. There was a pause filled with everything they weren't saying out loud. Then Alina spoke again, her voice calm but firm. You don't get to decide that for me. Ryan nodded slowly. You're right. I don't. Another silence followed, but this one felt clearer. The confusion was gone. The fear had settled. What remained was something simpler but harder to face. Acceptance. I loved you, Alina said. Ryan's expression didn't change, but his eyes did. I know, he replied. And maybe a part of me still does, she continued. But love doesn't ignore everything. It doesn't pretend things didn't happen. He nodded again, this time more slowly. I understand. She took a small step back, creating space between them. Not out of fear this time, but out of clarity. You made your choice, she said. And tonight I made mine. The words hung in the air, final and steady. Ryan didn't try to stop her. He didn't argue. Because deep down he knew there was nothing left to say that could change this. Alina turned and started walking down the road. Each step felt lighter, even though her heart still carried weight. She didn't look back this time. Not because it didn't matter, but because it mattered enough to let go. Behind her, Ryan stayed where he was, watching her disappear into the distance. The night felt quieter now, but also emptier. For the first time he understood what it really meant to lose something. Not because it was taken, but because of the choices he made. And that was something no amount of money could fix. As Alina reached the end of the road, her phone buzzed one last time. She paused, then slowly took it out. Another message from the unknown number. The test wasn't just for him. Her eyes narrowed slightly. What do you mean? She typed back. This time the reply came quickly. You walked away when it mattered. Not everyone does. Alina stared at the screen for a few seconds, then locked her phone without replying. She didn't need to know who it was anymore. Some things were better left unanswered. She took a deep breath and looked ahead. The road in front of her was uncertain, maybe even difficult, but it was hers. And that was enough. Because sometimes the biggest lesson isn't about what you lose. It's about what you refuse to become. And as the night slowly faded into the early hours of a new day, one truth stayed with her. Not every story ends with love staying. Some stories end with choosing yourself.